Krishna. Welcome back to our Swadhyay online reading retreat labs. So here we are trying to read in this two series. One is the Srimad Bhagavatam series every day morning, and we are having Bhagavad Gita series on every day evening. So morning Srimad Bhagavatam 8 o'clock in the morning, and evening Bhagavad Gita in the 8:30 p.m. in the IST Indian Standard Timing. Okay. So in this series we have started long back, but now we are continuing with canto number 9. So, in the canto number 9, in the last episode, we have read about the chapter number 10. So, if you see the canto number 9 here, the liberation. And in this, we have read about the chapter number 10, the pastimes of the Supreme Lord Ramachandra. So, that's a short snippet. So compare entire Ramayana is there, but very shortly and very briefly, it has been explained. Okay, from in this very chapter. Now we are going to read the chapter number 11. That is Lord Ramachandra rules the world. Okay, so this chapter, Lord Ramachandra rules the world. It is having approximate, yeah, total we have 36 verses in this entire chapter. So today we are going to start this chapter. We'll read the summary and chapter summary, and we will be, if you go to the mind map, we'll be reading the first 7 verses with their translation and purport today. And we will continue to read in the next 4 days. We'll be completing this chapter. Okay, so I have divided into this into four part. This is as per the, this is not my invention. This is credit goes to Srimad Bhagavatam Subodhini. And from that, I have taken those. And this in this, we have a different four different sections. The first section is Lord Rama's reciprocation with the Brahmanas, how is reciprocating different Brahmanas from verse number verse number 1 to verse number 7. Verse number 8 to verse number 14, we'll be seeing the descendants of Lord Rama and his brothers, who are the descendants that we'll be seeing in the next section. We have verse number 15 to verse number 23, the return of Sita and Rama to Vaikuntha and their glorifications. We'll be reading that. Then toward the end, the last section is verse number 24 to 36, Lord Rama's dealings with his brothers and citizens. Okay. So this is how the chapter, this entire chapter structure looks like. So we will be going in this way. So now let's then start with first section. So I have the hard copies with me. So this is the Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 9. So this is the hard copy. And also, if you do not have the hard copy, you can connect with the your nearest ISKCON center and collect. You can take this book. And also, there is an online version with best, which I am deciding with you as well. And if you do not have, don't worry, we can also read it online freely. So this is the online version. I have already logged in. So Lord Ramachandra rules the world. And I have also seen people have asked how to check that dual view. Suppose if you're not an English speaking person, so let's say you would like to have a dual language view. So this is how you can go and you can change your additional languages also. You can add on, right? So this is what exactly you can do. This is an advanced view, and this is a dual language view. In this, you can choose your respective languages, Russian, Spanish, Czech, and all the stuff, right? That we can do it. So now let's start with the chapter number 11. Lord Ramachandra rules the world. This chapter describes how Lord Ramachandra resided in Ayodhya and his younger brothers and performed various sacrifices. Lord Ramachandra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, performed various sacrifices by his by which to worship himself, and at the end of the sacrifices he gave land to the Hota, Advaryu, Udgata, and Brahma priests. He gave them the eastern, western, northern, and southern directions respectively. Eastern, western, northern, southern direction respectively. And the balance he gave to the Acharya. Lord Ramachandra's faith in the Brahmanas and affection for his servants was observed by all the Brahmanas, who then offered their praise to the Lord and returned whatever they had taken from him. They regarded the enlightenment given to them by the Lord within the core of their hearts as a sufficient contribution. Lord Ramachandra subsequently traced himself like an ordinary person and began wandering within the capital to understand what impression the citizens had of him. By chance, one night he heard a man talking to his wife who had gone to another man's house. In the course of rebuking his wife, this man spoke suspiciously of the character of Sita Devi. The Lord immediately returned home and fearing such remorse, he superficially decided to give up Sita Devi's company. Thus, he banished Sita Devi, who was pregnant, the center of Balmiki Muni, where she gave birth to twin sons named Lava and Kusha. In Ayodhya, Lakshmana begot two sons named Subahu and Shrutasena. When Bharata went out to conquer various lands on behalf of the emperor, Lord Ramachandra, he fought many millions of Gandharvas. By killing them in the fight, he acquired immense wealth, which he then brought home. Satrughna killed a demon named Lavana, ate Madhuvana, and thus established the capital of Mathura. Meanwhile, Sitadevi placed her two sons in the care of Balmiki Muni and then entered into the earth. Upon hearing of this, Lord Ramachandra was very much aggrieved, and thus he performed sacrifices for 13,000 years. After describing the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra's disappearance and establishing that the Lord appears for his pastimes only, Sukadeva Goswami ends this chapter by describing the results of hearing about the activities of Lord Ramachandra and by describing how the Lord protected his citizens and displayed affection for his brothers. We'll read from the first verse, text number 1. Text number 1, translation. Sukadeva Goswami said, thereafter, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ramachandra, accepted an acharya and performed sacrifices, yagyas, with opulent paraphernalia. Thus he himself worshipped himself, for he is the Supreme Lord of the demigods. Now reading from the purport from here. Sarvaha Haranam Achyuteja. If Achyuta, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is worshipped, then everyone is worshipped. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 4.31.14. Yatha taror mula nischenchana tupayanti tat skandha bhujopagasha prano prano paharasya yathandrandhyam tathaiva sarvahanam achyutesya. As pouring water on the root of a tree nourishes the trunk, branches, twigs, and leaves, and is supplying food to the stomach and livens the senses and limbs of the body, worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, satisfy the demigods. So, who are part of that Supreme Personality? Performing yajna involves worshipping the Supreme Lord. Here, the Supreme Lord worshipped the Supreme Lord. Therefore, it is said, Bhagavan Atma Nadamanam Easy. The Lord worshipped himself by himself. This doesn't, of course, justify the Mayavada philosophy by which one thinks himself the supreme personality of God. And the Jiva, the living entity, is always different from the Supreme Lord. The living entities, Vivinansa, never become one with the Lord. Although Mayavadi sometimes imitate the Lord's worship of himself, Lord Krishna meditated upon himself every morning as a grihastha, and similarly, Lord Ramachandra performed yajnas to satisfy himself. But this doesn't mean that an ordinary living being should imitate the Lord by accepting the process of aham grahapasana. Such unauthorized worship is not recommended herein. Then next number is text number 2, translation. Lord Ramachandra gave the entire east to the Hota priest, the entire south to the Brahma priest, the west to the Advari priest, and the north to the Udgata priest, the reciter of Samaveda. In this way, he donated his kingdom. Verse number 3, translation. Thereafter, thinking that because the Brahmanas have no material desires, this would possess the entire world, Lord Ramachandra delivered the land between the east, west, north and south to the Acharya. Verse number 4. After thus giving everything in the charity to the Brahmanas, Lord Ramachandra retained only his personal garments and ornaments. And similarly, the queen, Mother Sita, was left with only her nose ring and nothing else. Text number 5. All the Brahmanas who were engaged in the various activities of the sacrifice were very pleased with the Lord Ramachandra, who was greatly affectionate and favorable to the Brahmanas. Thus, with melted hearts, they returned all the property received from him and spoke as follows. What quote? In the previous chapter, it was said that the prajas, the citizens, strictly followed the system of Varnashrama Dharma. The Brahmanas acted exactly like Brahmanas, the Kshatriya exactly like Kshatriyas, and so on. Therefore, when Lord Ramachandra gave everything in charity to the Brahmanas, the Brahmanas being qualified wisely considered that Brahmanas are not meant to possess property to make a profit from it. The qualifications of a Brahmana are given in Bhagavad Gita 18.42. Samo damas tapassu chaucham shantir arjavam evacha jnanam vijnanam astikyam brahmakarma sohajam. Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, wisdom, knowledge, and religiousness. These are the qualities by which the Brahmanas work. The Brahminical character offers no scope for possessing land and ruling citizens. These are the duties of a Kshatriya. Therefore, although the Brahmanas didn't refuse Lord Ramachandra's gift, after accepting it, they returned to the king. The Brahmanas were so pleased with Lord Ramachandra's affection toward them that their hearts melted. They saw that Lord Ramachandra, aside from being the supreme personality of Godhead, was fully qualified as a Kshatriya and was extremely exemplary in character. One of the qualifications of a Kshatriya is to be charitable. A Kshatriya or ruler levies taxes often the citizens not for his personal sense gratification, but to give charity in suitable cases. Dhanam Iswaram Bhavam. On one hand, Kshatriyas have the propensity to rule, but on the other, they are very liberal with charity. When Maharaja Yudhishthira gave charity, he engaged Karna to take charge of distributing it. Karna was very famous as Dada Karna. The word Data refers to one who gives charity very liberally. The kings always kept a large quantity of food grains in stock, and whenever there was any scarcity of grains, they would distribute grains in charity. A Kshatriya's duty is to give charity, and a Brahmana's duty is to accept charity, but not more than needed to maintain body and soul together. Therefore, when the Brahmanas were given so much land by Lord Ramachandra, they returned it to him and were not greedy. Verse number 6, translation. O Lord, you are the master of the entire universe. What have you not given to us? You have entered the core of our hearts and dissipated the darkness of our ignorance by your effulgence. This is the supreme gift. We do not need a material donation. Purport. When Dhruva Maharaja was offered benediction by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he replied, "Oh my Lord, I am fully satisfied. I don't need any material benediction." Similarly, when Prahlad Maharaj was offered a benediction by Lord Nrsingadev, he also refused to accept it and instead declared that a devotee should not be like a Vadik, a mercantile man who gives something in exchange for some profit. One who becomes a devotee for some material profit is not a pure devotee. Brahmanas are always enlightened by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Within the heart, Sarvasya Chaham Hridasanivasto, Mattas Mritir Jnanam Apahamsha. And because the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas are always directed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are not greedy for material wealth. What is absolutely necessary, they possess, but they do not want an expanded kingdom. An example of this was given by Vamanadeva. Acting as a brahmachari, Lord Brahmanadeva wanted only three pieces of land. Aspiring to possess more and more for personal sense gratification is simply ignorance. And this ignorance is conspicuous by its absence from the heart of a Brahmana or Vaishnava. Verse number 7, translation. O Lord, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead who have accepted the Brahmanas as your worshipable deity. Your knowledge and memory are never disturbed by anxiety. You are the chief of all famous persons within this world, and your total spirit are worshipped by sages who are beyond the jurisdiction of punishment. O Lord Ramachandra, let us offer our respectful obeisances unto you. So with this, we completed the first segment of this chapter. So we have seen the Lord Rama's reciprocations with the Brahmanas in this section. So in this next session, we will be continuing with verse number 8 to verse number 14. So within that time, let's go to Notion app where exactly we'll be seeing what kind of questions we can have for this section. Hare Krishna. So we have a questions for this. So we have already created questions, MCQs. So few of them will be discussing, and those remaining will be in the your quiz. One of the question is, which direction was given to the Advari priest? Okay, the answer is west. Who perform sacrifices in worship of themselves in this for this purpose? The answer is Lord Ramachandra. So in this we'll be having a lot of questions. So we'll be seeing that in the upcoming quizzes in the Count platform. Okay. So we'll stop here. So this is the notes which you prepared. Do well and read the chapter and the purport carefully. And we will be continuing with the from the next session with the verse number 8 till verse number 14. So we'll stop here now. Hare Krishna. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.